Here we're going to take a look at an exponential equation or an exponential function. Regardless of whether it's y equals or you're in function notation f of x equals, ab to the x still gives you an exponential expression. So let's talk about the pieces of the exponential equation or the exponential function. So the a value is our initial amount. So whatever we're talking about, that's how much we start with. So my initial amount is a. Okay. Then beside it we have our b. B is our multiplier. So I have my multiplier. So my multiplier tells me how quickly does this thing grow. So for instance, if we're talking about bacteria, and we start with 100 bacteria, B will tell me how fast it's growing. Is it doubling, tripling? What's happening to the bacteria? And over to B. Okay, and then we have our exponent. Our exponent tells me how many time intervals there are. So my x, and I'm only going to do it to one side, so we have time intervals. And we have to be careful with that one. It's not just necessarily how much time is passing by. We'll talk about that in a second. So let's say for a second, if I want to set up a exponential expression for bacteria, so let's say we have bacteria. Let's say we're going to start with 100 bacteria, and it's going to double. And we have to, not only do you have to know if it doubles, but you have to know whether, how often does it double. So it doubles every hour. Okay? And then let's say 2 hours go by. So 2 hours. Okay, so my exponential equation is going to be y, meaning how many bacteria do I have after the end of this situation. And we're going to start with 100. So we're going to start with the initial amount. We're going to double, so it's going to be 200%, so times 2. And since it's doubling every hour, and there's 2 hours, we have 2 time intervals, so to the second power. And if I want to know how much after 10 hours, I'd put a 10 there. So to figure out how much bacteria I have, I would simply solve this equation. So y is equal to, we know exponents come before multiplication, so 100 times 2 squared is 4. And y is equal to 400. So I'd have 400 bacteria after 2 hours. Okay. Now I want to take a look at one more, just because of the time interval piece. So let's say again we start with 100 bacteria. So we have 100. And we'll even say it still doubles every hour. Actually, instead of doubling every hour, let's say it doubles every 15 minutes. Okay? And then we'll still go 2 hours. So if I'm going to set up my equation, I still have y is equal to, my initial amount is still 100. We're still doubling, but how many time intervals do I have? Okay, so if I'm talking about 2 hours and it doubles every 15 minutes, how many 15-minute periods are in 2 hours? Well, in 1 hour, we know there's 4 15-minute periods. So in 2 hours, we have a total of 8. So my exponent would be 8. And then you would solve that. So this isn't just necessarily how many hours we're talking about, it's how many time periods. So again, as you're setting up your exponential equations, and I'm taking a look at this right here, y equals ab to the x, we know y is the amount that we have after we're done. A is our initial amount, b is our multiplier, and x is how many time periods or time intervals we're talking about.